If you're struggling to see how it's even possible to lose weight because you can't imagine actually eating less, then listen on to find out how it is actually completely possible to eat less so that the scale moves in the right direction without you having to deprive yourself and kind of intuitively actually getting more pleasure and enjoyment from your food while eating less. So I know this sounds too good to be true, but it's possible. Let me show you how. Okay, so welcome to Joyful Eating 100 episode 180. So today we're talking about 7 simple ways to eat less and enjoy food way more. So, but before we get to the episode today, the best bite I had last night, I made teriyaki salmon. So it was like frozen salmon in a hot oven, straight from frozen. Actually last weekend I'd cooked a heap of some cabbage wedges, wonderful cabbage wedges. Uh, if you've got my recipe app, the wedges are in that recipes in there. And then so I cooked the salmon and then warmed up the cabbage wedges, and so the cabbage like cooks down, like so it's kind of like this noodle vibe, and then just drizzled it all with teriyaki, just a commercial teriyaki sauce, and then sprinkled over some furikake, which is this beautiful Japanese rice seasoning. It's got seaweed and sesame seeds. And it was just like every bite was just so good. I was like, I want to have it again tonight, actually. Okay, so our plan for today is first, I'm going to share the story behind this episode, as I usually do. And then we're going to delve into the 7 simple ways to actually eat less and enjoy your food more. I know it's counterintuitive, but it is possible. And then I've got a bonus tip for you. And at the end, we're going to share an invitation for you. So, story behind this is basically like when I'm coaching people, that it often comes up that people go, they get to this point where they're like, "Oh, I can't imagine actually eating less, but I know I need to eat less in order to, for the scale to move." But they're like, "Oh, I can't imagine being able to be actually eating less without feeling deprived." And actually someone had posted in the group recently how she was like, I can't believe it. And so when people get this, it's like, it's so fun because she was like, she posted and shared that she's pretty much eating like, half the pasta, serving herself about half the pasta that she like a serve of pasta that she used to eat, but actually enjoying it, like feeling really satisfied. And she's like, I'm actually enjoying it so much more than when I used to eat this giant bowl. And so I thought, yeah, let's do a podcast episode on this to show you like actually it's possible to do that, to actually eat less, but enjoy it more. And I guess before we delve into the simple ways, the reason like the reason why this is important is because we think we like when we like as food lovers, like we think we want more food, but it's actually the quantity of food we eat is irrelevant. Like what we really want is more enjoyment. And so if we can get to this place where we're actually getting just as much, if not more enjoyment from less food, then we naturally don't need to eat as much. We don't want to eat as much, and then the weight kind of takes care of itself. So it's actually a really important part of when I work with people in terms of getting them to be naturally healthy is this step of learning how to feel satisfied and to enjoy less food without, yeah, like, and less food so that you get just as much enjoyment, if not more. Because when you're getting the enjoyment, then there's no need. You don't really, nobody really wants to eat like, the quantity is really irrelevant. It's the enjoyment piece that we are really craving. So let's now go in and look at these 7 simple ways. So the first is, of course, to change your mindset, because if you're telling yourself, "Oh, there's no way I could feel satisfied with that much food," what's going to happen is that you're not going to feel satisfied with eating less. So we want to, of course, get the thoughts your mindset on board first. And so like rather than telling yourself, "Oh, there's no way I could do that," just open your brain up to the possibility, like it's possible for me to eat less and enjoy it more. it's possible me to be satisfied. Or if you're actually sitting in front of a smaller serving, actually sitting down and say, it's possible that this could be enough, like that actually I could enjoy this and this could be really satisfying. And when you're telling yourself like it's possible for me to enjoy this and to feel satisfied with this amount of food, then what will happen is the way the magic of our thinking is that then you're way more likely to feel that satisfaction from that smaller amount of food. And there's actually uh, some research that proves this. And I won't go into. I've mentioned this study before. It's called the milkshake study. But there's actually evidence that the thoughts that we have around the quantity of food that we're eating actually have a direct impact on how satisfied we feel afterwards, and also it has a direct impact on our physiology, like on our. So there's different hormones that govern hunger and satiety, and they're like if we think that we're going to feel satisfied by a certain amount of food, then there's was a study that showed that people who thought that like that two groups they actually ate the same amount of food, but the people who thought it was like it was going to be satisfying, actually their ghrelin levels, that their hunger hormone levels went back to normal, so they weren't experiencing physical hunger anymore. Whereas the group that thought, oh, this isn't going to be satisfying, their ghrelin levels actually stayed elevated. So their actually body's physiological response to the amount of food that they ate, even though they ate the same amount, like the way they thought about it had a huge impact on whether they felt satisfied or not. So don't underestimate the thoughts that you're having and this mindset piece. Like there's a reason why this is the number one one tip. So yeah, it's possible for me to eat less and to enjoy it more, or it's possible to me to be satisfied with this amount of food. So that's one thing. And then another, like more kind of more practical, tactical thing is to stop grazing. So, because the thing is that when you're grazing and you're just eating little bits here and there, and you're not actually sitting down and having a proper meal where you've got like, a decent amount, like you're actually seeing the food that you're having, it's so easy to overeat without and to eat, like put away a lot of food over the day without actually ever feeling like you've had that satisfaction of, oh, I've actually eaten a meal. So so if you are someone who's grazing, like that is like such an easy win, because when you actually give yourself permission to have meals instead of just randomly picking at stuff, like it completely changes your satisfaction levels. So yes, definitely grazing, not a great idea. Um, Next is to be intentional with your serving sizes. So often, like we have this habitual, like, we just, this is how much we normally serve and ourselves, and we just serve it out, we just eat it, and we don't bring any, like, we don't really pay attention to it. And I actually work with someone and she realized she's 5 foot, her husband's over 6 foot, right? And she was like, for years, she's just been serving them both the same dinner and they sit down and they both eat it and finish it. And of course, like, no wonder her weight, like, she's eating the same as her 6 foot husband. Like, no wonder, like, like that her weight was a problem. And so she started experimenting with serving herself less, and also like doing some of the things that we focus on. I'm going to a few of the following steps so that she was really paying attention and enjoying her food. And what she found was that actually she could get just as much enjoyment, if not more, from like her husband would just wolf it down and then he'd be gone, whereas she was really enjoying it. And so she was eating a lot less. She was able to eat a lot less and be super satisfied. And of course, you know what happens on like, and of course, like her weight followed suit, like it took care of itself because she was eating less, but she wasn't depriving herself. So it's a really cool hack. So be intentional with your serving sizes and just question, like experiment, do little experiments with yourself. Of like, if you normally have, a certain amount of pasta, like try like or a certain amount of rice, like try having like half or less than half, and just seeing how that feels. And like with the proviso that if you aren't satisfied by the end of it, you can always go back and have more. Like so that's number 3. Number 4 is to focus on the food. So when we are eating and our brains are also like, yourself, like if you've ever had that giant thing of popcorn at the movies when you're watching a movie, it's like it's gone, and then you're at the end of the thing, and you're like, and it's almost feels like you haven't. really eaten anything, even though you've had a heap of popcorn. And so, like, if our brains aren't engaged in the eating experience, it's almost like it hasn't happened. And so it's very hard to feel satisfied if you're eating with distractions. Like if you're reading something else or you're watching something, you're scrolling or you're doing something else, it's really hard for you to have that physical sense of, oh yeah, I ate something. And also it's really hard to enjoy things when your conscious brain isn't paying attention. So if you have that habit of eating like with distractions, like I invite you just to do an experiment again, experiment and see like how does it feel? Like how different is it if you actually just if you're focused on the food? Okay, that's number 4. Number 5 is slowing down. So this is a huge one because like when you're shoveling and you're just like getting it in as fast as possible, the of course the time that you're eating, like you can pack away a lot of food in a short amount of time. Whereas when you slow down and you you, uh and you actually, like, take smaller bites, then, like, you could have like, you can fill up your mouth with a whole one big bite, and there's only so much of the food that's touching your taste buds, and so your enjoyment of that food amount of food is, like, not very big, whereas if you take that like, actually take smaller bites and have, like, 3 or 4 mouthfuls, you get more of the food touching your taste buds, and so you get more enjoyment. So slowing down, just looking at the amount of food that you're loading onto your fork, and also just like one of the things that habits that I think is really helpful is just getting into the habit of putting your cutlery, like your knife and fork, or your chopsticks if you're using chopsticks, down in between bites so that when there's if there's food in your mouth that you're actually chewing and you're not like loading up the next like getting the next load up ready so you can shovel it in, like just taking that time to slow down. Then that's number 5. Number 6 is just savoring and actually giving yourself like gift of like actually tuning in of like, oh, what am I noticing here? And bringing that and you can do this like when you're eating on your own, but you can also do it when you're eating at restaurants. And what I like to do is think about it like I've got a spotlight. So yes, I'm like if I'm out and I'm having a conversation, like, yeah, sometimes I've got the spotlight focused on the conversation and the ambiance and like what's going on. But then when I'm eating, I actually just take that little pause to put the spotlight on like on me and like just have that little of couple of seconds of like, oh yes, this is really good. Or just, oh, what am I noticing here? So that you're like kind of doing this dance between the conversation and the like enjoying the time, but also enjoying the food as well. So just and it's just a matter of just switching your attention of just for and it like a couple of seconds here and there to like, oh, that's really nice. I like oh, that crunch is really good, or whatever it is. So fun. And then number 7 is engineering your environment so that you get to enjoy more food with less. And what I mean by that is actually like setting like serving yes, so rather than just grabbing out of the pack, or if you're having ice cream, rather than just eating straight from the tub and doing it when you've got stuff, all these other things going on, actually setting that intention of like, oh, I'm going to serve this out. I'm going to have it in a beautiful bowl. I'm going to sit down with this and enjoy it, so that then you have that finite time. And of course, like when you get to the end of the bowl, it's like, oh, yeah, that's a sign that that's probably enough. And then, of course, if you do want more ice cream, you can always go get back and get more. But just by serving yourself out and having that environmental control, it just makes it easier for you to have that pause so you aren't going back and eating more and more and more. Or another way to engineer environment, one thing I do is like when I've noticed that I've had enough to eat, and rather than like leaving my plate sitting there in front of me with like extra food on it, if I just sit there with it, often I'll just mindlessly put it in my mouth. So I actually have the habit of actually physically, when I know that I've had enough, actually physically putting the plate just away from me. So then I'm like, that's a signal to myself that I've stopped. Or if I'm at a restaurant, actually, like when I've had enough, like actually just putting my serviette on the plate again, so that that's a signal to me and to the waiting staff that, yep, I'm done here. So yeah, 7 simple ways. Like I've given you a lot of ideas. So rather than try and implement all of them at once, like I guess my bonus tip to you, oh, actually, there's a bonus tip as well. But before we do the bonus tip, like what I would invite you to do is just think through like this idea, like those 7 ideas that I've given you, and just choose one to experiment with this week. So, it might be that you just play with the mindset of just, it's possible for me to eat less and enjoy it more. Or maybe you're going to just be a bit more mindful of your grazing. And if when you have that urge to graze, actually giving yourself the gift of having a meal instead. Or maybe you're going to have a week of being intentional with your serving sizes, or just having a week of setting the intention of like, yeah, I'm going to focus on the food, or I'm going to really focus on slowing down, or like focus on savoring. Like you could do any or all of those experiments. Like no, just choose one, or in like just being really intentional about engineering your environment. So yeah, just choose one to experiment with this week. And the other thing, my bonus tip for you is to like coach yourself when you do overeat. So the thing is that you don't have to do any of this perfectly, right? And there are still like so many times where I overeat or I eat with distractions and I don't really pay attention and I miss out on the pleasure. Like, and that's okay. But when I do have those times where I overeat, is that I don't make it mean anything about myself. I don't make it mean that I'm never going, like that I'm a failure or I can't succeed or I like that I'm always going to need to eat too much. Like I just use it as evidence that, oh yeah, actually that didn't feel great when I was grazing, like, through the afternoon when I was in the kitchen cooking and I sat down to dinner and I was really stuffed and, like just I use it as whenever I have moments where I'm not overeating or I am overeating, I just use it as evidence of actually this doesn't feel good. And I get back to following those simple ways that I shared with you. Okay. And then my invitation to you. So, if you'd like some help to create sustainable habits, so you get to keep enjoying food and eating less without feeling deprived, then I'd love you to join me in the Naturally Healthy Club. So, Naturally Healthy Club is my personalized 6 month coaching group, which gives you a simple, doable process to help you change your relationship with food and all those habits that go around it so that you can become one of those naturally healthy people who feels in control of what you eat and gets to enjoy amazing food and also feeling at the same time feeling better in your body and your clothes. So next group's starting in September, and the last group sold out. So and the other part of the invitation is I'm actually running a free live class to give you a taste of what like following my unconventional methods is like. So and what it's like to work with me. So if that sounds good, if you're interested and you're curious about what it's like to be a naturally healthy person, then definitely come along to that live class. There will be a replay, but to save your spot, just go to thestonesoup.com/events or check out the link in the show notes. And yeah, and you'll be able to save your spot. So have a fantastic week and I will catch you next week.